Now, Wāvtech as a brand has undoubtedly cut their teeth in the OEM integration category. But in the last few years, they have expanded on that by bringing to market some very unique product, especially in the amplifier and subwoofer category. Today, we have their CTO, Jason Kemmerer, joining us to talk about new products added to the catalog. This is CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM, and it starts now. And joining us for today's show is Jason Kemmerer. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great, Ben. Great to be with you again.
Well, I'll tell you, we got some exciting stuff to talk about on today's show. You know, Wāvtech is one of those sleeper brands in my opinion, because in the beginning, those that know Wāvtech it's such an instrumental tool when it came to integrating into vehicles. You guys really got into the market with some very unique features with your active LOCs, and that seems like so long ago because Wāvtech is no longer just that company. You guys then came to market with multi-channel amplifiers, and then more recently the Thin Pro sub, which literally made noise everywhere. So for those that don't know, you're the CTO, you're the brainchild behind a lot of the product engineering and development. How good is it to be part of Wāvtech right here, right now in 2026?
Well, I've been at it for over a decade, actually. So this is our 10th year, actually going into the 11th year. So started off, like you said, with LOCs with one mission, entering into a category that had been stagnant for a couple decades, really. And we just came in with all sorts of innovations that solved a lot of problems, specifically with a low SKU count. So all of our processors since the beginning have answered as many applications as possible. I think we started with something like five SKUs that covered 95% of the vehicles out there. And then after we perfected our preamps, our LOCs and line drivers, it was the logical conclusion to build amplifiers around them. So all of our amplifiers have all of our LOCs and line drivers built in. And as the need increased for different kinds of channel configurations, we expanded the lineup of amplifiers. And now, just in the last few years, something that I've actually been working on for quite a few years in the background, I think about three years in development, even before we introduced a couple of years ago, is the Thin Pro subwoofer. And just like all of our products, the stuff we do, we're a small brand, so the stuff we do is focused on things we know we can do better, or that the market needs or solves a market problem. And there weren't any shallow subs that performed like real traditional full depth subs, let alone in a small box. And so that was the design goal, and it was not easy to do, but we did it. And as you said, I mean, it really made a lot of noise in the market, and with that, we moved on to even further extending that lineup this year.
So here's what I'll comment on. The transition from doing these LOCs and getting sound out of vehicles and incorporating those type of unique features into amplifiers was for me a very natural progression, right? Like I could almost say I saw it coming, if you will. And I think you found great success with that. We're going to talk about some new amplifier options today. Where I thought the deviation was in the development of the subwoofer, because that's like the Wāvtech's first foray into something outside of integration, right? This is now you're talking loudspeaker design, essentially. Right. Having said that, what you did was create a shallow sub that performs just at its own level. So let's get to the goods. Why you guys are tuning in today. We got, in particular, two main things I want to focus in on here today, Jay. They're two really exciting new products. I don't even know where to start. I guess let's start with the sub. The sub has been making a lot of noise, like I said. So the original Thin Pro did a couple of things. Let's talk about, before you show me the new one, let's just establish what.
No, I got the original here too to show you, so you can have a comparison. Yeah.
So unless you've been living under a rock, Wāvtech came up with this, I guess, this new take on how to get maximum output out of a shallow chassis subwoofer. It was available in 10-inch and 12 inches. It's had great reviews. It's been selling out, if I'm not mistaken, Jay. But it came at a price point, right? You guys had no compromise when it came to the development of this original Thin Pro. So let's talk a little bit about the success of the original Thin Pro first. Did it meet your expectations? And what has the feedback been?
Well, I mean, even though it's our first subwoofer as Wāvtech brand, I mean, we've been in this industry for a long, long time. I've been developing subwoofers since the late 80s, early 90s. So a lot of experience went into this,
Mhm.
experience with traditional mount subs, and I have done shallow mount subs in the past too. But they all had some kind of compromise to get enough excursion out of it. And so my goal really was to make it sound like a really high performance traditional depth sub that's maybe 6, 7, 8, even 9 inches deep, but in a 3 inch deep package, 3 inch mounting depth. And it when I first came up with the concept, I didn't really, honestly, I didn't really know if it was going to work. I had to do a lot of simulations, lot of cut and try, way more. I mean, you can only simulate certain things, even with modern programs. You just don't know if it's going to blow apart, it's going to keep together. So there's a lot of iterations and a lot of tooling, and tooling takes a long time. It's
Expensive.
very expensive, and,
Mhm.
and when you have to redo it, it's even more expensive. So yeah, I was even myself, having done made some of the best
There
subwoofers
was some
on the
skepticism.
market.
There was a little bit
It
of skepticism years
Yeah,
ago.
I
Yeah.
yeah, but it put a smile on my face, and it still does today every time I play it, whether it's sealed or ported. Especially, I mean, ported is just unbelievable. But yeah, what this subwoofer can do in the same size box it comes in, as far as an
Right.
enclosure size,
Right.
is absolutely incredible. Let alone the abuse that it takes out in the market, and the amount of power and applications that it's getting put in is just it's exceeded all my expectations. Actually,
Amazing.
it's just a
Amazing.
phenomenal sub.
So you have one there. Just talk quickly about what makes this Thin Pro sub so special, real quick.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I mean, obviously the mounting depth, 3 inch mounting depth, but within that 3 inches, the cone can actually move over 2 inches peak to peak.
Wow.
That would typically be a 6, 7 inch mounting depth subwoofer. In order to do that, I had to come up with something completely different, which is why it's patent pending. Is that the suspension, the spiders, are actually inside of the motor structure. So
Okay.
traditionally, in a thin sub, they've always been this thin ribbon of a spider all the way around, and it had to move its way around the motor. So that naturally made the motors much smaller. So I took a completely opposite approach and put the suspension inside the motor. So that makes the motor's only limitation the size of the frame. So the motor's way out here. On the Thin Pro 12, it's a 5 inch voice coil, which is a really large voice coil. So that also inherently gives it lots of power handling. And then, it has a dual gap top plate, so that contributes to its extended motor force that gives it that 20 millimeters of X max. So we're talking, less than 20% distortion at 20 millimeters X max. It's an incredible
It's off the
subwoofer
chart.
design.
It's off the
Yeah,
chart, like not normal for a shallow subwoofer, if you will.
yeah, not normal. So, I mean, there's a lot of parts in here that are hard to see, but actually, there's a force transfer assembly that connects the voice coil to the center, and there's two spiders in here. Actually, they're mirrored, no NBR spiders, just like the surround is, which also, I don't know if it's been done. At least hasn't been done in a long time. These subs basically don't really have any break in. As soon as they start moving, their parameters are
Yes.
what they are. So, being the MBR, it gives a lot of advantages, and there's also venting that's actually inside here that keeps
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 everything cool.
the pressure equalized and keeps airflow going through.
Mhm.
Um, and the double roll surround, I've done some patented designs before, multi-roll designs, but kept this pretty traditional. But going with the double roll gives us a lot more cone area,
Mhm.
um, with the excursion. So to have that over 2 inches of peak excursion, we have to have this ability to go much further. So, the biggest challenge of the design really was getting smaller spiders to move that far, and it took a few tries, but they actually do a great job, and it's
I
naturally more stable too, because it's pinned at the center instead of having that ribbon like I was
Right.
talking about the outside. It's more like a triangle, so it prevents rocking at those high
Well, I
excursions.
want to jump in here because I actually had the chance to listen to these things, not only in one vehicle. I've heard it now in three different scenarios. I got to tell you, first of all, the first impression you get, there's no way that's a shallow sub. Most people's reaction would say that out of the gate, just because we've all heard what shallow subs sound like. They're a little bit thin, but not in the same sense of thin. I mean, the base is a little bit thin. It isn't. It's not as deep. It doesn't punch as hard. And most shallow subs don't handle a lot of power for probably
Right.
because of the reasons that you just explained. This sub, however, guys, if you ever get a chance to listen to one properly powered, because this thing can take a lot. What is the power rating on the 10 and 12?
750 RMS. Yeah.
Right. So if you give it the right power with the right enclosure size as recommended by Wāvtech, you will undoubtedly be impressed with the output. Now, not to take the light off of the Thin Pro, but we're not here to talk about the Thin Pro because we know the Thin Pro is awesome. However, what you guys did, and I'm going to guess, I'm going to surmise that this is based on, demand, right? Hey guys at Wāvtech, any chance I could get some of that cool output and space considerations, but I might not have the budget for the full Thin Pro? I'm sure that's what they asked, because now Wāvtech is introducing a brand new version of this thin sub technology. Why don't you take it away from here? What are we talking about, Jay?
Well, just like you said, Ben, I mean, the Thin Pro has been a huge success for us, but obviously it is fairly expensive, and it has a lot of technology in it and a lot of cost, and that's just what it has to be for that kind of performance. So, how to get that similar kind of performance at a more reasonable, not a reasonable price, but at a lower price that's attainable for a lot more people was the design goal of the new Thin 12 and Thin 10. So I have one here. Actually, this will be shipping pretty soon. It looks a lot alike. I mean,
honestly,
you can tell right
at
away.
First glance, I wouldn't even be able to tell you the difference at this angle, anyways.
Yeah.
Even on the side, it's hard to tell.
Yeah. So okay. Same depth, exact same depth, 3 inches. A couple of key differences is it's a steel frame instead of a cast aluminum frame. The voice coil is a little smaller, so on the 12 it's a 4.5 inch, same as the Thin Pro 10 actually. So it's a 4.5 inch voice coil and a little bit smaller spider. So it uses a similar spider as the Thin Pro 10. The cone is a Kevlar pulp blend, so Kevlar reinforced pulp cone. Initially, I started with a polycone and just found that it was just too damp and it didn't have that upper bass kick. So this actually is a really good middle ground. It's a little heavier than the honeycomb Nomex on the Pro, but it's super rigid, and everybody knows paper sounds great for subwoofers, pulp cones. So having that Kevlar reinforcement, it has to be able to take a huge amount of pressure in these small boxes. So that was one thing that took a long time, was getting this cone exactly right. It is the same surround. It's a little bit different tooling, but it is the same surround. And all the parts, there's no shared parts in it with the Pro. The only thing it has is the terminal, and that's about it. So,
and the surround,
it was
surround,
and the surround. The surround is it's the same surround, but the spiders are totally different. And actually, this one centerpiece that supports the.
Just to review, the cone material, the basket material, the spider material, all little cost savings. But what are we talking? If I took a big picture of this, if I compared the Thin Pro and the Thin, what do we talk about price reduction versus performance reduction?
Well, it's 2/3 the price, so it's a pretty huge price difference. But 85% of the performance. I mean, we're talking really, really, really great performance at 2/3 the price.
What about power handling?
500 watts instead of 750. So still a good, on the 12 and the 10. The 12 is going to come first. The 10's coming later this year. And it's still, huge amount of power. It's great power handling. 17 millimeters X max instead of 20. Still 2 inches peak to peak excursion. And most importantly, it's the exact same box application.
I was just going to say, what about the enclosure sizes?
Yeah, that was actually, out of anything, that was one of the biggest targets I had was, people are going to be building boxes for the Pro already. There's going to be a lot of boxes out there that are designed for the Pro. But, if the whole system cost is an issue, you're going to get 85+% of the performance, and you can put it in the same enclosure. So now, the motor's a little bit less powerful, a little bit less power handling, but the sound character is really, really, really close. The same kind of very deep bass with impact in those really small boxes. The Q's slightly higher, so you're going to get a little bit more of a bump in the sealed alignments and a little bit more of a bump in the ported alignments. But it's, it's kind of, it depends on what you're looking for, but output certainly is one of the big things people are looking for, and these have a ton of output.
Well, I think, in my opinion, if you have a more aggressive price point on this, but you're getting 85% of the performance, now you're putting people in the position where, do I do 112 Thin Pro, or do I do two Thin 12s? Because maybe
right,
the variation might get me there to get me a little bit more dBs. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So,
yeah.
listen, Jay, amazing. Congratulations on the new announcement for the new Thin 12 and the Thin 10 coming soon. We're talking with Jason Kemmerer here from Wāvtech. After the break, we're going to get into another new product, this time in the amplifier lineup. We'll be right back.
Hey, Paul with SiriusXM here. And with 3 easy steps, you can maximize your business. Number 1, make sure you have the current promotional material up. Understand the offer? Make sure your team knows it. 2, have a unit on display. Set the presets to different genres so you can recommend and play the music that your customer listens to. And number 3, think about this. Most vehicles you're replacing the head unit with already has a SiriusXM tuner in it. So adding it just requires an antenna adapter, a SiriusXM tuner. It's a 30-second install and you're done. So there it is, guys. 3 easy steps to maximize every sale this season with SiriusXM.
All right, we're back, and we're here with CTO of Wāvtech, Mr. Jason Kemmerer. Jason, before the break, we talked about the awesome new Thin 10 and Thin 12. Thin 12 being available first, Thin 10 shortly afterwards. Now we're going to shift the conversation a little bit because, of course, we have to talk about amplifiers. So in the beginning of the show, we talked about how Wāvtech expanded their line from LOCs to amplifiers. It came with a nice, I'll call it a core line of amplifiers to start. But now you're adding to this line. So I'm curious to see what you're adding and why. So what do we have to talk about as far as new amplifier models for Wāvtech?
Well, thanks, Ben. We actually have 2 new models. One is shipping now already. That's our new 8-channel. And then there's a new 5-channel, which kind of similar to what we did with the Thin 12 and Thin 10 versus the Thin Pro, was try to get a little more value performance. So we took the what our very successful 1000.5 plus and shrunk that down into a 600.5 mini, and preserved most of the features and actually added some features to it. So yeah, this is in our original mini chassis, same as our 500.1 and 300.4 and all that. 1000.1, but so extremely small, but a lot of power. So this is 75 by 4 and 300 by 1 in a sub channel. And like all of our amps, it's very underrated. It does a lot more than that.
Okay, so just to clarify, because if people don't know, there are 2 sub-series of amplifiers within the Wāvtech line. So just break that down for us real quick. What's available right now, and how do we break out the 2 series?
Well, we like to say we don't really have series. We have one lineup. The only difference between them is the width or the size and the amount of features. But we don't have a good, better, best. They are all the best. They all have the same super high sound performance output stages. They all have all of our 40 volts of input. Even some of them have our line drivers built in. Has all of our crossover flexibility. So with a sound quality focus across the line, the main difference is power, size, and features. This one just happens to be,
and channel count.
And channel count, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, some of the new features that we came out with actually in the LOCs. This is the new 4-channel Link 4 Plus, and the 6 Plus is already shipping. Came out with a lot of new features, including the auto bass that goes
I had
with
a question about that. We've been on before. We did get some questions about it. So take a second and help us understand, because there's 2 things going on when it comes to the bass frequency and Wāvtech amplifiers, right? You've got auto bass, which you just mentioned, and then there's also another feature called Bass Freak. So can you take a second and differentiate these two features?
Yes. So Bass Freak is really the core. We've had that in our amplifier since the beginning. This is the 500.1. So all of our mono amplifiers have had it. And then with the 5-channel, the 5th channel had it, and then we've subsequently added it to our new 8-channel. So what that is really based off of an LOC line driver model that we had in the first couple of years called the Bass Freak. So now it's called the Bass Freak processor, and that incorporates a fully adjustable parametric EQ, a 24 dB per octave subsonic, and a 24 dB per octave low pass. Combined, that is our Bass Freak processor. So it's the ultimate bass tuning. There's very few amplifiers that even have a parametric EQ, let alone 24 dB per octave crossovers. So that's our proprietary Bass Freak processor. The auto bass is just an additional feature on top of that, which gives you the ability to. This is the new 8-channel 1400.8. It has its own dedicated processor that can be assigned to the internal channels or to the line driver pre-out. And so it has a Bass Freak processor, but it also has auto bass. So auto bass gives you the ability to automatically turn on the parametric EQ at a certain signal level. So, some vehicles, the bass just drops out at a certain radio volume because, the factory decided it wants to protect its speakers from being overdriven. So you lose all the bass, and that's not really good for an aftermarket system. So with the auto bass, you simply turn the radio up. It's very simple to set. Turn the radio up to where your bass drops out. Start increasing the sensitivity dial here until the light turns on. Then the parametric EQ is active, and then you just use the parametric EQ to recover that bass, and even more so. So you can also use it as just straight up parametric EQ. There's actually a click on here that you can just turn it on all the time. So it gives a huge amount of more flexibility than what's been done in the past. And it's actually patent pending design that is going with the Bass Freak processor in the 1400.8, and it will be coming out in other models in the future.
The whole thing with the Wāvtech series of amplifiers is that they have so many features built in. I honestly think you guys have thought of just about everything to satisfy every scenario to get sound in every type of vehicle you can think of. A couple quick ones here that are very unique to Wāvtech amplifiers. If you have start-stop situations, no problem. All the amplifiers take care of that. You have built-in adaptive loading. That's a big question we get all the time, because a lot of times you need to get another device or another something to make that work.
Right.
Your amplifiers, just plug them in and you choose, and it's done. There's nothing to think about. Here's what I want to ask you about. Active thermal rollback. Is this a protection circuit?
Kind of. It basically monitors the internal temperature in a couple different places and decides when the amplifier is increasing temperature beyond a certain level to prevent shutdown, because most amplifiers just shut down. Ours actually have a 2-stage system where when it gets to a certain pretty high temperature, it actually rolls back the output just a little bit.
Okay.
Only a couple dB. And in most cases, that's enough to stabilize, and then you'll get back to full power. You probably won't even notice it, because if you got them that hot, you've been really clipping them and playing them super hard. So it really prevents shutdown, and so the music just keeps playing, and you probably won't even notice it. So it's maybe not totally necessary for most situations, because our amplifier
it's redundancy.
It's a redundancy, because we spend a lot of time on thermal testing and making sure that the chassis mass, the thermal mass, and the chassis layout already provides enough thermal mass to continuously play our power ratings and then some. Most of our amps well exceed their power ratings, but it's just an extra safety measure to keep the music playing. Yeah.
Okay. Now, here's an interesting comment that we get from our viewers sometimes. Some people take a look at those Wāvtech amplifiers for this first time. They're like, really? It's 2026. Do we still need that many dials and switches on an amplifier? So hold on. Before you, yeah, that one's crazy. But here's how I'm going to connect the dots for our listeners here. The flexibility when it comes to the inputs, along with summing, is kind of what sets the amplifiers apart. So take a second to explain why there's so many dials and why it's so flexible for just about every situation when it comes to the inputs.
Well, we basically took a stance in the market that there's everyday installs that are people doing every day, and doesn't really require a DSP. So we're kind of bridging that gap. We provide actually some things that some DSPs don't even do, but in the analog domain, and that preserves a lot of sound quality, number one, but number two, it's much easier to adjust. It may look intimidating, but actually these 4 sets of channel pairs, so these 8 channels, they're all the same. So once you understand, basic crossover settings, a high pass and a low pass, or a band pass when they're combined, the range switch that we have on this particular model gives you ×1 or ×10 frequency range, so you can use it for active 2-way, 3-way, 4-way even. But one of the things you're alluding to is our input flexibility. We've had that since the beginning with our multi-channel LOCs that allows you to take for example, on our previous 8-channel, you could take a factory 2-way front and sum that signal to get a full range output, and a 2-way rear and sum that signal, and still preserve factory fading. So we continued that through with all of our amplifiers, and actually came up with a new way of doing that in the new 600.5 and the new Link 6 Plus and Link 4 Plus, and now the 1400.8, which is our matrix input. It's basically works just like the matrix graph you would see on a DSP. You can send any input to any output in any combination, and you can sum any.
Instead of doing it in a software, you're just manually doing it.
Yeah, so it's right there at your fingertips. No PC required. Just need a small screwdriver. All of our amplifiers have multi-range inputs, so that gives you a ability to have a much more accurate and gain adjustment, not super twitchy, trying to cover the huge range that we have, which is all the way down to 0.2 volts up to 40 volts.
Which is
gain
pretty
range.
much every single vehicle on Earth.
Yeah, so it covers every vehicle that currently produced, and but it also allows you to put low level into it if you're using with an aftermarket system, which a lot of our amplifiers are. So we give you all the flexibility for total integration, but you don't have to use it. And so, but on top of that, you have all the tuning capability that is beyond. I mean, I think this is probably the most controls ever put on an analog
Jason,
amplifier.
It is. I can guarantee you it is.
Yeah, probably so. So, but we try to give all the features for tuning you could possibly need, and the flexibility that goes in any system. And again, this goes back to our original philosophy of when we first came into the market, was the least amount of SKUs to cover the maximum amount of vehicles, so it's easy to carry for our dealers.
Now, Jay, you've done an incredible job. Thank you so much for taking the time to explain the unique features and the technology. I've saved kind of 2-3 questions here to kind of close out our conversation.
Okay.
You mentioned it. You went there, so I'm going to ask the question.
Yeah.
You've done a great job providing all these analog, switching to be able to manipulate whatever input scenario that you're looking for. Has there been a thought towards maybe integrating some DSP into that now that we're already kind of there? You're kind of knocking at the door.
Yeah, we've sure covered everything but, and even exceeded a lot of what DSPs can do. And in fact, a lot of our LOCs get used with DSPs just because of their limitations. But yeah, of course. And in fact, I've already designed it multiple times. So yeah, there definitely will be something coming. But our philosophy was focus on the everyday installs and innovate in places where nobody's innovated before, like the subwoofers, like the flexibility of these amplifiers, and the power. That's one thing that most of these
so that's something
of these
to
DSPs
note.
don't have enough power. Yeah,
I want to say something here. On CMA we get to talk to all different brands, all different scenarios. The Wāvtech amplifiers, for their footprint, do offer an above average output per channel. That I must say, like, the ratings are very impressive for the size of the amplifier that they are. Having said that, today we talked about that new 5-channel, right? We talked about that 8-channel. Is there a thought process about even more channels? Because there are systems out there that require 10, maybe 12 channels. What's your thought on that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, for sure. Just like everything else, if we're going to do something, we're going to do it right, and we're going to do it different. So yeah, I mean, 10, 12 channels, something like that, with all the core technologies we have on the analog side incorporated also with digital is going to be our approach to DSP. So yeah, it's definitely something on our mind, and you're in the ballpark. Yeah.
All right. Amazing. You didn't have to answer it, but I'm happy you did. So thank you so much, Jay. Listen, if you guys want to find out more information, whether we're talking about the new amplifiers or the new thin 10 and 12, the 12 coming first, make sure you hit up the website wavtech-usa.com. Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. If you like this content, do us a favor, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the notification bell. We are always coming to you with the latest and greatest in mobile electronics news and information. So thank you so much for supporting us, Jay. Once again, great job. Congratulations to you and the team. That's it for this CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu. Until next time, we connect.